All right, so thank you everyone for being here tonight. Welcome to ALASC's Spring 2026 Poetry Open Mic Night. This is our third annual Poetry Open Mic Night. I started it because I wanted to, create a little bit of space for our iSchool students to connect in community and just celebrate National Poetry Month, which is this month in April. And it's always fun to see what our students do creativity, I can't talk today, outside of school and work and the things that we do artistically. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what everyone is sharing with us tonight. We talked a little bit before this about why we write poetry and did an icebreaker. So we will go ahead and get started tonight. The first half of our event is going to be like a structured speaker lineup, and we have our poets who have already signed up to read tonight. And then for the second half of the event, we will have an open mic, so anyone who's here in our audience can unmute and also share their work if they feel like that. But if you're just here to listen, that's totally fine as well. And I hope you enjoy listening to some of the poems that our other students have to share tonight. So with that being said, this is our speaker lineup for tonight. And we will get started with, actually, Kier can't make it tonight. So I originally wasn't planning to read, but I added myself to make our lineup a little bit longer. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more time together tonight. All right, so first up we have David Brehmer. And David has appeared in or on Humana Obscura, Hyacinth Review, Persephone's Fruit, Alien Buddha, Bulb Culture Collective, The MacGuffin, and Ginsco Literary Journal. His latest collection, Life, Death, Love, and Babies, is now available through Finishing Line Press. He writes to prove how much he loves life, despite his thoughts and words. And you can follow him at David Drum 22. Thank you, David, for being here tonight. I will go ahead and switch my screen to David's poems so that everyone here can see it for accessibility. And then I will hand things over to David to take it away.
All right, thanks so much for having me. This first one, trigger warning, is about war and horrible things. Um, but the second one is less heavy, so hang tight. This one is called Anything is Possible. A boy reached for his ball, and his friend's skull spilled open. The boy would call it his head stuff in the short clip circulated on social media. Part now of the pavement, dusted with justified expenditures. The sturdiness of bone, the dimensions of the pitch, the sound of cloudless sky, the limits of a friend. Nothing now is yesterday. As we're often taught to promise, the boy now knows anything is possible. So the second one, trigger warning, is about love, but meant to be not just romantic love, all kinds of love. It's called What I Mean When I Say the Words, an Introvert Attempts Explanation. I love you like I love sunsets, suddenly spreading out across life's tedium to radiate the magnificent fact that the sun sets every day. I love you like I love the rhythm deathless in my bones, waking my hips to slide subconscious through the honey air before I think to ask. I love you like I love words typed black with purpose and set against blank and brilliant white to mix the world and all its horrors. I love you like I love the stupid gift of life. I don't want to share a mortgage. I want to dance with you like refugees to the anthem of our invented homeland, ecstatic to finally find another. I want to spin and shuffle and beam until the sky reminds us music must sometimes return to dwell beneath our skin and hum, bubbling inside until we are given again the space to release. I want you and your soul to sit across from me and stare, to grin, to glisten eyes and breathe the same rich air. I want to create new life and breathe into it all we know and hope. I want to carry our creations to the shore, to scatter them to the wind, to set them loose in the forest and wait and watch until it is absolutely certain they require a friendly beacon. I want to love you like a sponge accepts water, and we to be the hand that dips the sponge and the glass that offers the liquid. I want us to be the ripples and the lake and the rock sinking swiftly to the mud. And there, nestled beside the worms and fish scales and fowl droppings, shine in the filtered light an invitation to discovery for any who dare to swim with eyes open, for those who know escaping air and still choose to weigh new knowledge against time. I love you like the fish we both eat and marvel at, like the brick we stack like walls, like the alarmingly smooth skin of a child, warm like heaven, like the reassuringly worn touch of a partner, like electric into yours in the blue exploration of evening abandon. I love you like I love. Love like breathing roses and cheese. Love like 2 a.m. and burning for 3. Yes, bills and time and terror and the insane flailing remainder. Yes, tomorrow and the next day. Yes, our stupid fading miracle bodies and our gorgeous ambivalent planet. When we can, we will dance beneath our ever-changing flag, ecstatic, loving each other and wanting to love, pushing our hips, whatever they may be, against the pink and honey air. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David.
David, can we ask questions?
Short?
Um, the second one,
Hmm.
which has so much imagery, and I wonder, I love the sort of the juxtaposition of knowledge and time, the refugee and the homeland, and obviously I'm a Shakespearean scholar, so anytime anyone says tomorrow and the next day, I read Shakespeare into it. Where do you take your inspiration for the imagery?
Uh, I mean, quite honestly, it was just stuff I had in my head, and uh, those are sort of the images I picked to describe what I meant. There wasn't really a specific inspiration beyond that. I'm sure things kind of leak in, but yeah, it was more or less just sort of trying to get at that kind of intangible, or trying to explain something intangible with things people might be able to, physically understand.
I think that's fair. It's hard to capture the intangible.
And he did such a great job. I think that's what poetry is all about, trying to find words to put things that usually can't be put into words.
Yeah, thank you.
Were there any other questions or comments for David?
I just appreciated that being anchored in the simile, the repetition of I love you like. There was such beautiful music to it.
Thank you.
I love how your first poem is titled Anything is Possible, and that often has a hopeful connotation, but in the poem, a child's head, um, something violent occurs to them, and so that doesn't fall in line with that hopeful idea. So I like that. It's a clever kind of way to title and play. It's a clever way to play on that phrase, anything is possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and sharing in David's poetry together. We will move on to our next speaker. So now we have Maya. Maya Kini is a poet and goldsmith based in San Francisco, California. Her writing explores the intersections of craft, language, and the body, examining how making and materiality shape perception, memory, and repair. Part artist, part historian, her practice seeks to understand how materials perform both physically and poetically. Maya is a 2025-26 Brown Handler resident with the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library and a future librarian. Congratulations, Maya, and thank you for being here tonight. We are so excited to hear from you again.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Great. So this first poem I'm going to read is it's called Blackberry Cento, and it's a cento is a poem comprised of lines of other poems. And at some point, I was walking in the canyon near my house, and all the blackberries were blossoming. And I was thinking about how many poems are out there with blackberries in them. So. This is my sort of ode to all the poems about blackberries. And the lines are taken from the list of poets that you can see there. On the hands, the purple of ripe grapes, sunlit and warm as flesh, sweet like thickened wine. Summer's blood was in it, leaving stains upon the tongue and lust for picking. I come to one bush of berries so ripe it is a bush of flies. The honey feast of the berries has stunned them. They believe in heaven. The green will never again be so green, so purely and lushly new. I kiss many lovers and not lovers, thumb blackberries from the ravine into our purpled mouths, cramming the black honey of summer into my mouth. It's, as I always told you, the best ones grow in shadow. And as I stand among them, lifting the stalks to my mouth, the ripest berries fall almost unbidden to my tongue. Last September, I picked blackberries bare-armed. Here are the scratches 10 weeks later. We are passing through the world. This is some of what it does to us. There are moments when the body is as numinous as words, days that are the good flesh continuing to turn every blackberry corner of yesterday's summer into early morning's terrestrial sweetness. The next poem is called Super Bloom, and some of you who are local may have seen signs in state parks about deadly mushrooms that people were ingesting because they looked like mushrooms that they knew that were harmless, and the people being most impacted were immigrants from Mexico and Central America, and also Chinese migrants. Super Bloom. Imagine coming here. Imagine walking these forests, pines and redwoods, a mess of ferns, like home. Imagine verisimilitude, pines are pines, bunches of mistletoe, bromeliads, Douglas iris, and orchid caught in the crook of a great oak tree in the forest you haven't seen in 2 decades. Imagine the forest your small son has yet to see. Imagine finding a mushroom that looks like home, like the mountains in Oaxaca or around Lago Atitlan. You can smell the wood smoke, the blue corn blistering on the comal. Your home for a moment. Imagine plucking this prize with your capable hands, showing your son how to check the grill. But you can't read the signs in this bosque, and neither can he. Imagine how this new land might taste seasoned and fried in butter. Imagine how this discovery will make your stomach cramp, your liver fail. Imagine what looked like home is really an assassin dressed as an angel, exterminating, a white stock donned with a ghostly cap. Imagine your death foretold in the heavy rains of fall, in the super bloom of decomposers. Imagine your body consumed by an army of foreign worms. And The last poem I'm going to read is called Material History, and my bio mentions that I'm a goldsmith, so I think a lot about the material history of gold. And so this poem is the beginning of a much longer poem about gold. The gold had been a crown worn by a Neolithic queen, paper thin before there was paper, hammered with stone on stone in the open air, then twisted into an elaborate torque. The gold had been a pair of Egyptian sandals sculpted into cats and buried with the dead, their bodies curled in fear, in alert. The gold had been a gilt phallus used in a brothel in Pompeii, in hot cinnabar-stained rooms. The gold had been at least 18 wedding rings, one papal ring, a salt cellar, snuff container, a full set of teeth, a smile and a frown. 20 coins used to buy a small ship, the ballast, sails, and anchor. 3 more for food for the men who would fall onto land months later with calloused hands and heavy beards, men who would scoop water into those hands and drink. The water fresh, ice melt, glacial. The gold would be what brought them there and what would drive them west and east and down into the depths of every ocean, the Canadian tundra, the Australian outback, into bank vaults or museums and every other place they could make or destroy. The gold was the thread and the tapestry. The gold was liquid and solid and dust. The promise of everything, treasure and yoke. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya. Beautiful readings. Did anyone have comments or questions for Maya as well?
In the first poem, even though they were lines taken from other poems, you did really well to maintain the not assonance. I can't think of the word where it's when it's consonants, but the lines really felt like they went together. It didn't seem like separate. The vowel sounds and the consonant sounds, repeated in a really pleasant way, even though they were, borrowed.
Yeah, I haven't written many poems in this form, and I appreciate it because it's like a collage, as a
Yeah.
visual artist, it's like, you know, sort of getting out of one's own head and working with found material.
I always think it's so amazing to see what poets do with centos because, like you said, it's like a collage. And in some ways, I feel like it's harder than writing your own poem because you want to make what you're borrowing from other poets into a cohesive whole. And if I think the best centos are the ones where if we hadn't been told that it was lines from other poems, like you wouldn't know. You would just think, oh, Maya came up with all of this herself. And I would absolutely believe that. So I think it's working really well.
Mm, thank you.
I appreciate the context you gave before reading your second poem, Super Bloom. It enabled me to appreciate it more, and I loved the lines, "You're home for a moment," and then also the line, "Imagine what looked like home is really an assassin dressed as an angel." I think that's a very sad line, and I think um you can also look at it from a context of like aside from them finally feeling like they're home just from a mushroom, that it's they struggle on their own enough to assimilate in this country and to find anything that is like this. So it's just heartbreaking for it to be an angel dressed as an assassin.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote this poem after hearing a piece on the radio, and it was like I have to write a poem because that is just so heartbreaking. Especially like what you were describing, Hannah, like people coming to this country and not being welcomed um, at all, right? This is at like the height of the raids. So.
I'll chime in with that as well. That poem spoke to me, and the first line really, imagine coming here. It's sort of it's so poignant and at the same time so broad, and sort of how the reader imagines the here and what that means to every person who reads it. I think is inclusive somehow, and welcoming. Um, and I read it. It was very interesting to hear the context, because I read it as Hannah, as you pointed out, sort of the kind of the immigrant experience that can be heartbreaking. And I didn't quite pick up on the mushroom. I'll say that until you gave it context. Um, but the end line also sort of stuck with me, right? The army, kind of the military sort of version of it. It's an army and it's foreign and it's warms, and there was heaviness to it that I felt at the end. So it really spoke to me. It really did. And I enjoyed you reading it. There was something also in your voice that gave it power.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts on Maya's work. And thank you, Maya, for your reading.
Thank you.
Okay, I will go back to my slideshow. So we originally had Kier in our lineup tonight as well, but unfortunately Kier couldn't make it. I don't think he wanted me to read his poem for him, so I will respect his wishes and we will go on. As I mentioned, I added myself to the lineup to give us a little bit more to listen to tonight. I'm not going to read my bio verbatim because that would be a little bit strange, but as I mentioned earlier, I started writing poetry in late middle school, and it was pretty much a natural transition from the songs that I was writing since elementary school. And before that, I hadn't really drawn a connection between song and poetry, but I really saw the avenue open up there once I started delving deeper into poetry. And the first poems that I fell in love with were always like rhyming poems. As morbid as it is, I really loved Edgar Allan Poe's Annabel Lee, and I remember the cadence of that poem like really struck me in the heart. So that was how I fell into poetry. And then I majored in English in college and was a poetry major, so I wrote copious amounts of poetry. And after that, I really needed a break. So I actually haven't written poetry in a while. I write here and there, but definitely not to the extent that I did in undergrad. I started this event, as I mentioned earlier, so that I could connect with other poets and feel that sense of community that I really enjoyed participating in when I was an undergrad poetry major. And I'm thankful to everyone who's made this event possible for the last 3 years. I am graduating this semester, so I'm excited to be saying goodbye to everyone. And I currently work at a public library and lead our adult literacy program. So with that being said, I will go ahead and I only am going to be sharing one poem tonight. So my poem is called Never Gone. If you must leave, love, then leave me when the rains come. So if you go, you're never gone. I'll look to the skies, where all I'll see is you, the surrounding storm, swirling like the gray depths of your eyes. The tears you shed at our parting, coming down ceaselessly in cold droplets that fall from the sky. Know that I'll miss you without forgetting the scent of your skin, petrichor, permeating the earth and everything around me. And when I yearn for you, I'll stand under the sky and substitute the soft sprinkling against my cheek for your tender touch. Know, also, that nothing can replace you, not the roughest of rains nor the darkest of days. Lingering in the storm, I'll let the wind sting my skin. Breathing in the bitter air, I'll let it bite my lungs. I'm not afraid. Do you think such superficial cold can compare to ice picks cutting into the heart chilled by your absence? As much as I complain, I want to tell you. Don't worry about me, love. Leave if you must. I'll relish your rainy season and wait for warmer weather to dry the skies in my eyes, bringing you bodily back to me. For you are the rain. The rain is not you. Thank you.
That's such a it's a beautiful thought, but it's such a sad concept because especially in the rainy season, like it rains all the time. It's really sort of uh, the subject of the poem is sort of condemning themselves to this kind of constant sadness because of a natural phenomenon, But that's how it feels sometimes, I know.
Yeah.
I
I
love
think
when you say, oh,
sorry. I think the last line in particular is very interesting, kind of speaking to like the difference between perception and reality, and like kind of romanticizing someone when you're looking back on them.
I love the phrase, I'll let it bite my lungs. I feel like that's such a unique thing to say, but you understand exactly what you mean. And the use of bite, it's such a violent word. And the use of when you say superficial cold, um, like that's such a subjective thing saying that no matter how cold it can get, it can't compare. I just that the use of the phrase superficial cold, I think is very, very great.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me piggyback off of your thought again. Because the one thing I noticed is sort of this outside world acting upon the speaker. And the line that caught my eye was waiting for the warmer weather to dry the skies in my eyes. And I love the thought of the skies in my eyes, right? Because it's not just about sort of the sadness, but also the bigness and the possibility and the potential. But it's also and I don't want to say lack of agency, right? But sort of the moment of I'm waiting for the warmer weather. I'm waiting for this outside force. I'm waiting for something that's bigger than me. And in a way, sort of also searching for that is bigger. So I love that.
Thank you, everyone. It's so nice to hear everyone's thoughts on my poetry. All right, so I will turn it over to our next speaker. All right, so now we have Sarina. Sarina Okrzesik is a writer and public library paraprofessional based in Chicago. She graduated from Elmhurst University, earning a Bachelor's of Arts in English, and is currently studying for her Master of Library and Information Science at San José State University. Her writing has been featured in publications such as JMWW, The Helix, and Creation Magazine. She explores the intersections between nostalgia, liminality, chaos, and resilience through her work. You can find her at Sarina Okrzesik on Instagram. Thank you for being here again tonight, Sarina.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to read again. It's very much appreciated. Let's see. Today I'm going to be starting with my poem, Dread is My Mother. Light blares through the viney tangles of my eyelid veins, curtains of flesh stretched translucent as a placenta. Sometimes I wish my eyelids were not juncals, which allow light to penetrate through the palm leaves, and instead curtains of cave night drawn against our blinding sphere. We're born into a world where we need relief. I glimpse the shadow form of a massive arachnid, iridescent like moonstone through eyelids pried to slits. She descends out of the overwhelming sunlight. Her eyes are blind, and that I envy. Dread is my mother, and I am bound in an attic to our web, residing in a corner of shadows that you cannot see the bottom of, lit only by the occasional dart of a glitter dust particle. She guards me, swaddling my body in spider silk till I can't struggle anymore. All her tough love abuse cocoons me and separates me from the security I always asked for so politely. I chased my name and it slipped my grip, turned into sand streaming from my clutched fist as if traveling through the stem of a bottomless hourglass. I knew, I always knew a name like Peacemaker would do nothing but take from me. I beg to receive that which I am supposed to provide, a peace that I have yet to create or concoct or even discover the recipe for. Dread is at least as cruel a parent as fate claims to be, so she only stares blank-eyed at me when I ask that she allow me to manifest my meaning. No matter how kind or urgent my request, Dread lets the sand slip from her bulging abdomen down through her widow stem and out between her fuzzy jaws into the ether womb hung in the depths beyond her web. The dark that the sunlight does not touch, the world that I am no longer permitted to be within, calls my name. And my second poem is just a bit of a short one, kind of based on a real scene and a real realization I had. I saw God. My therapist asked, "Who is God to you?" As I was driving home after my session, I saw him, bumping across the railroad tracks, tires to steel. My attention tripped and stumbled off its well-worn route. My gaze left the familiar asphalt ahead to be blinded by brilliant, billowing clouds. Above the residential apartments they laid, piled up and up upon each other, climbing the arc of the atmosphere. At this time of day, in this angle of the light, they became a precipitous range of mountains, majestic in their sunlit glory. I floated in the transcendence and transience of this existence. I stood on the threshold of the realm of the Holy Spirit. In the foreground, a steeple, narrowing into a slim steel cross, bisected the alpine landscape, distracting from it, interrupting it. I thought to myself, suddenly crying, "There's God. Beyond the steeple, there he is." He answered the question I had been given. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sarina.
I really enjoyed in the first poem the imagery of the uh, the speaker's eyes being closed, but the light was still getting in, and it wasn't quite dark enough for them. That was a really effective image.
I will piggyback off of that. I was really impressed by the progression of the poem, and I think I was able to visualize everything so vividly with the imagery that you painted in the poem. Um, the second stanza is just so relatable, I think, because I've definitely had that moment of like closing my eyes, and if your eyes are open underneath your eyelids, you can see images in the darkness of your eyelids. It's actually a very creepy experience, I think, if you've ever tried that. So I this whole poem felt very much like one of those hallucinated imagery that you would see on like your closed eyelids. So I thought that was really cool.
The two lines, or I guess the tiny stanza, "Her eyes are blind, and that I envy," just made me think of the concept of how ignorance is bliss, and it can relate to not just being physically blind, but people choosing to live without fully knowing the how reality can truly be and how horrible it can get. And then I guess that relates back into the other tiny stanza before that stanza, the that says we're born into a world where we need relief.
I'm not sure how to read it yet, but I can't I'm I'm fascinated and challenged and troubled by the images of motherhood and sort of all the words from placenta to um, womb, everything that we associate with the warmth of a mother or a parental figure of some kind. And I'm stuck on that. Um, I'm not sure how to approach it. Because I also see words there like it's sort of like the bulging abdomen, sort of all of these really staggered sort of images of the mother. But that mother is also cruel and a widow, perhaps. And I'm still grappling with that. And I'll let it sit for a little bit.
All right, thank you everyone for all your thoughts. And thank you to all our speakers for sharing your work. So that brings us to the end of our structured speaker lineup, which means that the floor is now open. I don't know if there's anyone here who isn't part of the speaker lineup who feels like sharing their work, but if you are here to share your work, this is your opportunity now. We do have some ground rules that I usually set at these events so that we can all participate in a safe and comfortable space. So as it says here, we are aiming to create a space for open creative expression while also ensuring the safety and well-being of all our participants. So we ask everyone to share in this space with an open mind and listen respectfully to work of differing modes, beliefs, and perspectives. We also ask presenters to refrain from sharing work with intentionally hateful or harmful content, and we reserve the right to expel any presenters or attendees who violate this rule. And building onto that, if you believe your work contains violent or potentially triggering content, we ask that you provide a warning about this content before you begin to read so that anyone who wishes to step away or mute the presentation can do so for their own well-being. And we did see some of our speakers do that for us. So thank you, everyone. As you all know, this event is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the ALASC's YouTube channel in the future. And you can also see the past 2 years open mic events on the YouTube channel. So if you're presenting or speaking during this open mic and you don't want your performance included in the final recording, just let me know and you can still share during the event, but I will not include you in the recording. And feel free to share links to your personal or artist social media accounts in the chat. ALASC does not endorse any of the content shared. With that being said, is there anyone who wants to share during the open mic portion of our event?
I have some I would like to share. They're 5 haikus. Could I copy and paste them in the chat?
Sure, yeah. And I can also spotlight you.
Oh,
So Hannah's putting her poems in the chat so we can see them. All right, we see your poems, Hannah. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, and feel free to like introduce yourself. You can do a little introduction for yourself as well.
of course. Yes, I apologize for not introducing myself in the beginning of the meeting, but I am a newly admitted MLIS student. I went to UCLA for undergrad and I studied American literature and film. I would love to use my MLS degree to become a film archivist and get involved with film archiving. I started with my journey with creative writing began because in high school I went to a creative writing summer program at Cal Arts, and I mainly did it because I wanted to pursue screenwriting. But there I learned about poetry, nonfiction writing, and playwriting. So I think so now it's been some time, and I have not written a lot, especially in undergraduate, but I am really happy to be returning to writing more and have more creative energies, have more creative ideas flowing within me and having an overall creative energy. But yes, I would love to read. These are just 5 haikus. They did not take a lot of planning. I kind of just wrote them pretty quickly because I am taking a creative writing class right now. Just a small at a recreation center, but I would love to read them for you guys. Never wait it off. The time will not be perfect. Perfect time, a myth. Never reveal all. Some protection must exist. Sensible secrets. Never strictly plan. One big universal truth is uncertainty. Never not express how you genuinely feel, or else you suffer. Never recreate a moment that was perfect. You'll just tarnish it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Hannah. I love to see the haikus. My first love was haikus, so I always love hearing other people's haikus. Um, I think they're such a accessible mode of poetry for a lot of people.
I like it's sort of structured like they're almost like a list of commandments, but just in haiku form. Yeah, sort of.
Well, thank you, everyone. Is there anyone else who wants to share or any other comments for Hannah?
I was going to say I love that they all 5 of them start with never.
Me too.
There's something very definitive about that. And I love in a way that they're all about maybe time. Or at least that's how I see them. Moments of time and the way we exist in time and reveal ourselves in time. And sort of how we express our feelings in time. So there were connections for me, at least, is how I read them between them. So and I love that about them.
I think to David's point, they felt very philosophical. So I liked that. I feel like poetry is little pieces of philosophy.
It very much reminded me of Stoicism because that's what I'm reading lately. So they felt sort of those nuggets of wisdom. Yeah.
Mm. Hannah, there was this is unrelated to poetry, but is related to film archiving. There was an event last night. I don't know if you saw it with Society of American Archivists and the archivist at SF MoMA, but she comes from a film studies Pixar background. So
Do you know if
it was recorded. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately I was busy last night, but I would love to be able to access that recording.
Yeah, just as she talked about her pathway to archives. So it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your comments.
Thank you for sharing your poetry with us, Hannah. And I know the SASI, the student chapter who put on that event, I feel like people in this profession are very willing to share and connect with other people. So I bet if you reached out to the Society of American Archivists student chapter, they could probably connect you with their speaker too, and you could speak to her directly.
She actually said she never refuses an informational interview.
Perfect. There we go. I found that to be so true of like people who work in librarianship in general. Everyone in this field is so forthcoming and willing to give their time because I think at the end of the day, this is a service profession, so we're all kind of in this together.
Totally.
All right, thank you, everyone. I don't know if there's any other thoughts or comments, but if not, we will start wrapping it up. So that was all I had for everyone. So I just wanted to thank you all for attending. Again, I've been holding this event for the past 3 years and I've really enjoyed it every year. It's so fun to see what the different kinds of poetry that everyone brings and the different forms of community that we create with a different set of speakers every year. So I really enjoyed hosting this event, and to those of you who have been here more than once, I hope you've enjoyed being part of it as well. So since I'm graduating, this is the last one that I'll be hosting, but hopefully someone else will take up the reins in the future and create this kind of space for our students.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you. Talia, I wanted to turn it over to you in case you had anything else you wanted to say about our events.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I think
Sorry.
I think we will pick up in the fall. Our plan is to maybe start a little early in August. We do hold notebook book club. So people come with recommendations for books they have read. And that's always a lively discussion, or recommendations for, for books that you don't recommend. So please come and check it out. Sometimes those conversations sort of turn to what classes are you taking and what professors would you recommend? So it's a very free-flowing conversation. So look out for those announcements. And if I don't see you before that, I hope everyone has a fantastic summer.
Thank you, Talia. Again, thank you everyone for being here tonight. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great rest of your night. Good night.
Thank you.